Buddhism? Is it a religion, a philosophy, a way of life, or something entirely different? The answer isn't as simple as checking a box. In fact, the more you explore it, the more you realize it's both and neither at the same time. That's the paradox of Buddhism. Think about most religions. They have a God, a set of commandments, a clear path to salvation. There's a heaven to reach, a hell to avoid, and faith is often a requirement. But Buddhism, it doesn't fit that mold. There's no deity to worship, no fixed dogma, no promise of paradise. Instead, what it offers is something far more radical. A method to understand the mind, to see reality as it truly is, and ultimately to break free from suffering. Now, that word, suffering, it's important, because if there's one thing all human beings share, it's this. We suffer. We struggle with loss, attachment, desire, frustration, and fear, no matter who we are, where we live, or what we believe. But here's where Buddhism stands apart. Instead of saying, have faith and everything will be fine, it hands you a set of tools and says, try it, test it for yourself. See, that's what makes Buddhism so unique. It's not about blindly following rules. It's about investigating, observing, understanding the nature of reality through your own acts. And that brings us to one of the most misunderstood concepts in Buddhism, enlightenment. A lot of people think it means some mystical state of bliss, like floating in an endless sea of peace. But enlightenment, at its core, is simply seeing things as they really are, without illusions, without the filters of ego and attachment. So why does any of this matter? Why should you care about Buddhism in the modern world? Because the problems Buddha spoke about 2,500 years ago aren't ancient history. They're the same struggles we face today. Anxiety, stress, the endless chase for happiness in all the wrong places. The feeling that something is always missing. Buddhism doesn't promise you an afterlife. It promises you freedom, right here, right now. Not through faith, but through awareness, through mindfulness, through understanding the impermanence of everything around us and letting go of the things that keep us trapped in cycles of suffering. And that's why it's so hard to define. It's not just a religion. It's not just a philosophy. It's a path, a way of seeing and being in the world. So, what do you think? If Buddhism isn't quite a religion, but it's also not just a philosophy, what exactly is it? And more importantly, how could this paradox change the way you live today? Let's break it all down. What makes a religion a religion? Most people would say it needs a god, sacred texts, a moral code, and rituals that lead to salvation, a higher power guiding the way, a promise of something beyond this life. Think about Christianity. It's centered around faith in God and salvation through Jesus. Islam is built on submission to Allah, following His word as revealed through the Prophet. Hinduism dives deep into the nature of existence, blending devotion, philosophy, and sacred traditions to explore ultimate reality. But then, there's Buddhism. And Buddhism doesn't fit. No almighty creator watching over you. No divine judgment waiting at the end. No final heaven or hell that determines your fate. Instead, there's something else. Something radical. A concept called dependent origination. The idea that nothing exists on its own. Everything, every thought, every action, every experience happens because of causes and conditions. The Buddha never said, "Worship me." He never claimed to be a god, a savior, or a prophet. Instead, he said something far more profound. Look within, observe reality, understand suffering, and you'll be free. And that's where Buddhism turns the entire idea of religion upside down. It shifts the focus from worship to wisdom, from blind faith to personal experience, from doctrine to direct understanding. Most religions tell you what to believe. Buddhism tells you to question everything, including Buddhism itself. Don't take anything on faith. Don't believe just because a teacher said so. Test it, see for yourself, and that changes everything. Because if Buddhism isn't centered around a god, if it doesn't demand faith, if it doesn't promise salvation in some distant afterlife, then what exactly is it? A religion? A philosophy? A way of life? Or something completely different? Here's the truth. Buddhism is a path, a method, a way of seeing reality as it truly is, without the filters of ego, attachment, and illusion. And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's deeply practical, because every day we struggle. We get caught in cycles of stress, desire, frustration, and suffering. We chase happiness in things that don't last. Money, relationships, success, only to find ourselves lost, searching for more. Buddhism cuts through that illusion. It teaches that suffering isn't random or inevitable. It has a cause. And if suffering has a cause, it can be understood. It can be undone, not through prayer, not through divine grace, but through awareness, through mindfulness, through seeing clearly and letting go of what binds us. So maybe Buddhism is a religion, maybe it's a philosophy, maybe it's both, or maybe it's something beyond labels entirely. But what really matters is this. What can it teach you? How can it change the way you see the world? And more importantly, how can it set you free? Let's dive deeper. Imagine living in a world where everything is perfect. No pain, no struggle, just endless comfort. That was Siddhartha Gautama's life. A prince, raised in a palace, surrounded by luxury, sheltered from the harsh realities of the world. But all of that changed the day he stepped outside. For the first time, he saw sickness. He saw old age. He saw death. And in that moment, his perfect world crumbled. Because he realized something that most of us spend our whole lives trying to ignore. Nothing lasts. Youth fades. Wealth disappears. Happiness comes and goes. And no matter how much we try to hold on, suffering is inevitable. So he made a choice. He walked away from the palace, left behind his title, his riches, even his family, not out of rejection, but out of a deep need to understand something greater. He wanted to know, is there a way to escape suffering? Is there something beyond this endless cycle of craving and loss? And after years of extreme self-denial, of pushing his body and mind to the limit, he found the answer. Not in indulgence, not in self-punishment, but in balance. He called it the middle way, neither drowning in pleasure nor starving in pain, but walking a path of clarity and wisdom. And from that understanding, he discovered the foundation of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths. 1. Life is suffering. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Pain, loss, disappointment, they're all part of being human. 2. Suffering comes from craving and attachment. We suffer because we cling to people, to things, to ideas of how life should be. 3. Letting go of craving means letting go of suffering. Freedom comes when we stop grasping at what we can't control. 4. The way out, the Eightfold Path, a guide to living with wisdom, ethical action, and mental discipline. But here's what makes Buddhism so different. The Buddha didn't ask for blind faith. He didn't claim to have divine authority. He didn't demand belief in something unseen. Instead, he said, test it. See for yourself, just like you test gold in fire. No threats of punishment, no promises of reward. Just a method, a way to experience truth firsthand. And that's what makes Buddhism not just a religion, but a path of discovery. It's not about worship. It's about understanding, about breaking free from illusions and seeing life as it truly is. But let's get practical. What does this mean for you right now? How can this ancient wisdom actually help you navigate the struggles of daily life? Let's dive deeper. Buddhism isn't about running away from life. It's not about escaping to a cave or sitting on a mountain meditating all day. It's about how you live, how you think, how you act, and how you see the world moment by moment. At its core, Buddhism is about one simple but powerful thing: mindfulness. Think about it. How much of your life do you spend lost in thought, reliving the past, worrying about the future, drowning in stress, regret, or fear? That's suffering, and mindfulness is the way out. Mindfulness isn't just about meditation, it's about being fully present, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, tasting your food instead of rushing through a meal, actually listening to someone instead of thinking about what you'll say next. But then there's meditation itself, not as an escape, but as a way to train your mind. Imagine this. What if you could step back from your emotions instead of being consumed by them? What if you could watch anger rise and fall without letting it control you? What if you could have clarity in your thoughts, peace in your heart, no matter what's happening around you? That's what meditation unlocks. Not numbness, not indifference, but true awareness. And then there's ethics. But here's the thing. Buddhism doesn't give you rigid rules, commandments, or threats of punishment. It gives you guiding principles that help you live with wisdom and freedom. Don't harm others, not because someone said so, but because causing harm creates suffering, for them and for you. Be honest, not out of fear, but because truth clears the mind and heart. Live with integrity, do what's right, even when no one is watching, because it leads to inner peace. Keep your mind clear, because when your mind is clouded with greed, hatred, or confusion, you can't see reality as it is. These aren't rules for the sake of rules. They're not about earning rewards or avoiding punishment. They're about freedom. Because every time we lie, manipulate, or act out of greed, we trap ourselves in suffering. And every time we choose kindness, honesty, and clarity, we move toward liberation. That's why Buddhism isn't just a belief system. It's not something to accept or reject. It's a toolkit for life, a way to live with wisdom, a way to find peace, not by escaping the world, but by fully engaging with it. So the real question is, how can these ideas change your life right now? Let's explore that together. Is Buddhism a religion, a philosophy, or a science of the mind? Buddhism is one of the most fascinating spiritual traditions in the world. But what is it really? Is it a religion, a way of life, a philosophy, or maybe even a science of the mind? The truth is, it's all of these things, and yet none of them. At its core, Buddhism isn't about blind faith or strict doctrines. It's about experience. It invites you to question, to explore, to see the world and yourself clearly. It blends spirituality with reason, faith with direct insight. That's why it has lasted over 2,500 years. Not because it stays the same, but because it adapts. In Japan, Zen Buddhism strips everything down to simplicity, direct insight through meditation, koans, and mindful awareness. In Tibet, Vajrayana Buddhism is rich with rituals, visualizations, and deep esoteric wisdom. And in the modern world, especially in the West, many people practice Buddhism without even considering it a religion. They embrace mindfulness, meditation, and self-awareness, using ancient wisdom to navigate modern life. And that's the beauty of it. Buddhism doesn't demand belief. It doesn't force you to follow dogma. Instead, it invites you to see for yourself. Are you suffering? Are you searching for peace, for truth, for understanding? Buddhism begins with a simple idea. Suffering exists, but it doesn't stop there. It offers a path, a way out, through mindfulness, through wisdom, through compassion. It teaches that happiness isn't found out there, not in wealth, not in status, not in fleeting pleasures. True peace comes from within, from understanding the nature of your own mind, That's why so many people from all walks of life feel drawn to its teachings, not because it promises miracles, but because it offers something real, something human. So, whether you see Buddhism as a religion, a philosophy, or a way to train the mind, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is this. Are you willing to look inside, to question, to explore? Buddhism doesn't ask for blind faith. It only asks for one thing, your attention. So, take a deep breath. Be here, be now, and see for yourself. We live in a world that feels more chaotic than ever. Wars rage, economies shift, uncertainty looms, stress and anxiety have become part of daily life. Everywhere we turn, there's conflict between nations, between communities, even within our own minds. And yet, through all of this, Buddhism offers something rare, clarity, not in the form of rules or commandments, but in a simple, profound truth. Suffering exists, but there is a way out. Buddhism doesn't tell you what to believe. It teaches you how to see, how to observe the mind, how to understand your emotions, how to break free from old patterns and live with awareness. It doesn't dangle rewards in the afterlife. It asks, what about right now? How are you living in this moment? Are you present? Are you awake? Are you truly here? Instead of rigid rules, it gives you tools, practical, flexible, timeless tools. Mindfulness, meditation, wisdom, compassion. These aren't beliefs. They're skills. They don't belong to any one group, culture, or religion. They belong to humanity. And that's why Buddhism remains so relevant 2,500 years later. Because it's not about religion. It's about transformation. It's about breaking free from suffering. It's about waking up. It's easy to feel powerless in a world full of chaos. But real change doesn't start out there. It starts within. So the real question is, are you ready? Are you ready to let go of what holds you back? To step beyond fear? To see things differently? Because once you do, once you truly see, nothing is ever the same again. Let's be honest. Life is complicated. Stress, frustration, uncertainty, they're everywhere. But Buddhism isn't some ancient philosophy locked away in temples or scriptures. It's practical. It's something you can use right now to navigate the challenges of everyday life. So how do you apply it? Mindfulness. Take a deep breath. Right now. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. Notice the tension in your body, the thoughts racing through your mind. That's meditation in its simplest form. Not escaping, not suppressing, just noticing. The more you practice this, the more clarity you gain, non-attachment. The next time anger rises, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, is this feeling permanent? Does it define me? The answer is always no. Every emotion, every thought, every situation, it all passes. So why cling to it? Why let it control you? Let it come. Let it go. Compassion. When someone hurts you, what's your first reaction? Anger, retaliation. But what if you saw their pain instead? What if you realized that just like you, they're struggling too? Compassion doesn't mean allowing harm. It means responding with wisdom, not hatred. Because the truth is, no one is truly happy when they're consumed by negativity. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're small shifts in perspective that can change everything. And that's the essence of Buddhism. Not blind belief, not rituals for the sake of tradition, but direct experience. It's about practicing awareness, letting go, and showing up for life with an open heart. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to chant or bow or follow rules. You just have to pay attention to yourself, to your thoughts, to the world around you. Because when you do, something incredible happens. You start to see clearly. You stop getting lost in the noise. You begin to live, not on autopilot, not trapped in the past or the future, but right here, right now. And maybe, just maybe, that's all you ever needed. So here's the final thought. Buddhism isn't about labels. It's not about calling yourself Buddhist. following a set of rules, or believing in something just because someone told you to. It's about how you live, how you see the world, how you respond to suffering, your own and others. It doesn't ask you to worship anything. It doesn't require blind faith. It simply invites you to look deeply into your own mind, into your habits, into the patterns that create stress and unhappiness. Why do we suffer? Why do we chase things that never truly satisfy us? Why do we cling to thoughts and emotions that come and go like waves? Buddhism offers a path, not a doctrine, not a dogma, but a way to train the mind, to cultivate wisdom, to move through life with compassion and clarity instead of fear and attachment. It teaches that true happiness isn't found in external things, not in money, status, or fleeting pleasures. It's found in awareness, in being fully present, in understanding that nothing is permanent, that change is constant, and that peace comes from within. And in a world that feels more chaotic, more uncertain, more divided than ever, maybe that's exactly what we need. Not another ideology, not another argument about who's right and who's wrong, but a simple, direct way to wake up, to be mindful, to be present, to live with intention. So here's the real question. Are you ready? Are you ready to stop living on autopilot? To stop being ruled by fear, anger, and desire? To start seeing life as it truly is? Because that's all Buddhism really is. An invitation, an opportunity to understand suffering, to transform your mind, and to live with wisdom and compassion. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only thing we've ever needed.